Hey bass anglers, the famed Biffle Bug. Yum has now purchased the Gene Larew brand and taken things like the Biffle Bug and renamed it the Scutterbug. So Yum has bought a couple of brands and then reconsolidated and centralized all its offerings under the one brand under Yum now, including the Biffle Bug. And in doing so, they've taken the mold, the same action, the exact same bait basically, and rebranded it under Yum. They've done that to bring, a pro price of $6.99 down to a $3.99 value price in the Yum, and it's essentially the same bait. I've not seen any difference in its action or its effectiveness from when it was the famed Biffle Bug. And from everything I've seen online, Yum is committed to the quality and maintaining the design and feel of the original Biffle Bug. I've used this recently, committed to trying it out, and it's an effective technique. So not only did I want to bring you a little bit of information about the rebranding that Yum now has the Biffle Bug or the Scutterbug, that they've got it at a value price at $3.99, and when and why to use this bait. So one thing I committed to this season to try to be a better bass angler is to use some techniques that I haven't before. And I've always had a wobble head in my arsenal since they came out, but I've quite honestly never used them effectively. And I got to researching a little bit about summer dragging. I was looking for something to do in the summertime. Carolina rigging is very popular in the summertime. Everybody talks about the sea rig. Dragging a football jig is kind of a feel way to get used to that Carolina rig. If you don't really like the Carolina rig setup because you don't have a good feel for it and it just doesn't feel good to you, you can drag a football jig around and get the same sort of an effect. You can also very effectively drag a wobble head. So I committed to the wobble head, and I committed to dragging a bait around this summer in these summer haunts that fish are at. They can be in 4 to 6 feet of water feeding on a weed edge that exposes onto a sandy flat, or they can be on a rock bar on a tapering point out from 12 to 25 feet of water. So fish transition after the spawn and they move out to these summer areas. An effective way to get them is to drag. So committed to it, put a rod in my hand. It was summertime, conditions were right. So I just went out and I dragged around this Biffle Bug or this Yum Scutterbug. This bait is 4.25 or 4¼ inches long. It's got a wide, kind of the beaver style body, but it's got wild legs and appendages here that really move on the bottom, and it's got a tail. It's also got a pocket in it right here, a slot in their bait for either a rattle or scents is what they say. But I went out there without a rattle or scents, just the scent and the oils on the bait from Yum, and drug it around. So I get 2 different sizes on the terminal tackle end for the wobble head. First of all, I like to get a 3/0 Trokar hook on there. I like the Trokar because it's deadly sharp, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I get a 3/0 Trokar hook on a 1/2 ounce and a 5/8 ounce wobble head. And the reason I'm using the 1/2 is if I'm in less than 10 feet of water, I'll use the 1/2. And if I'm over 10 feet of water, I'm using the 5/8. And I want bottom contact. That's the key. This is a dragging technique. You're going to be throwing it out a long cast. It casts very, very well. I use a medium heavy action rod with a soft tip. I use 30-pound braid to maintain feel and connection with it. And then I use a high-speed reel. I use an 8-to-1 gear ratio baitcaster reel with it. And I'm bomb casting it out there a long ways, letting it sink, counting it down, feeling the bottom, and then dragging it on the bottom. And you want to pull this thing along as fast as you maintain bottom contact, because that hook, as this football head is banging on the bottom and banging on rocks, the hook's swinging behind it with that scutterbug on it. And that constant movement across the bottom is that crankbait, soft plastic crankbait style approach where it's banging off of things and ricocheting off of things and moving along the bottom. Those fish will come and stop it. And that's why I like a little bit softer action in my tip of my rod to be able to take that, because I've got braid on there, and then I can reel set them and end up with the fish hooked. And that Trokar hook with a moving bait and a moving fish and him overtaking it, that Trokar hook being deadly laser sharp and strong is important. So a lot of success, 3/0 Trokar, 5/8 and 1/2 drug, and these, like I said before, this is like my soft plastic crankbait. There are a few other baits that I will use this for as well, but let's stick today with the Biffle Bug Scutterbug, the Yum Scutterbug, the new Biffle Bug, and put it in your hands and try it. That's the one thing I've noticed is that, you know, I locked this in my hand when I learned about it, and I went out and I explored and I tried it, and I know now that it works. So when I encounter summer conditions and I'm looking at rocks or I'm looking at a steep gravel rocky shoreline with a pivot point on it, I'll drag that down that. If it's got wood and rocks mix on it, I drag it across that. It can get, you got to pop it a little bit if you get around big boulders. It can get hung up behind boulders unless you pop it up off of them. But I've been able to get, you know, I don't get stuck a whole lot when I'm throwing it in the right conditions. Gravel, chunk rock, sand, weed edges with clear spots outside of the weeds. A real great place is to bomb cast down a weed line, hit rocks or hit sand or a gravel on the outside of a weed edge and pull that thing down it. It's absolutely deadly. And the one thing I noticed again, the green pumpkin gets more fish and the June bug red flake gets the bigger fish. So get a couple of colors and experiment. Once you get your limit up with the green pumpkins, you can move to the dark colors and try to catch a big one. So great technique. Lock it in your hands for a day, try it out, and you'll have some success and you'll put fish in the boat when others are having difficulty with standard techniques. So hope that tip was helpful. Please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time on the water.